Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the ImPerfect Podcast. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Kennedy. Join us on this week's episode as we discuss intriguing topics and people of interest that will inspire us to explore all of the unique pieces of ourselves.
We are all imperfectly perfect.
We're glad you're here. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the ImPerfect Podcast. I have been seeing a lot of the pictures on social media where it shows and a lot of people probably are familiar with and have seen these as well, where it shows a picture and it says, do you see this image first or do you see this image first? And sometimes there's meaning behind whichever way you see it, like if you're a left brain or right brain person. But it kind of opened my eyes when I saw one just the other day, and I just thought it could have the potential of being a good podcast topic. And so today I just wanted to share some photos with you all, including my mother. She hasn't seen any of these images because I wanted her to give her honest initial, like what she sees.
Am I taking a test?
Right. Yes, it's a test.
With the people who are listening as opposed to watching.
Yeah, so we'll describe the images a lot, even just in the way that we're talking. You're probably going to be familiar with them because they have circulated quite a bit. But if you do want to see these images, I do have the titles for them, so you can go and search for them yourself, or just look up our YouTube link and you can watch along with us. So I felt there was a lot of underlying message behind these images in regards to just perspectives and how people see things totally differently based off of their backgrounds, the certain place that they are in life at that point in time, the way that they stand, the different messages they've received to formulate a result, whichever way you want to look at it. Everyone has different perspectives when it comes to many different things in life. So we're just going to demonstrate some of that with some fun images just for fun. So I'm just going to share my screen here. So as I was saying, there are often multiple ways of seeing the exact same thing. So it's just based off of which perspective you have, or like I was saying, where you are in life. There's so many different contributing factors as to why people would see things in a different light. So
I just want to say before you start pulling up the things I've never seen before, I do remember reading a couple of examples where situations were created to capture how everybody would look at the situation differently. Like, let's say somebody ran into the building and took your book bag and took off with it, and then after they say, like, well, what did the guy look like? And everybody has a different answer, it seems, or which way did he go first, and how could you mess that fact up? But different people see things from different perspectives. I see where you're going here.
Absolutely. Yeah. So image number 1 is pretty simple. So it's called the Necker cube, and it's just to kind of like bring us into these pictures. So it's often questioned whether, and it's very hard to say and describe in words, whether it is placed like the front of the cube is to the left or if it's to the right. So I will show the next picture as well, just to kind of give you an idea on the dotted lines. Is it front facing, back facing? So it's all based on perspective. So when you first look at this image of just a 3D cube is what we're looking at right now.
My eyes are like,
yeah, you're trying to you're zooming in, zooming out, and then you kind of do this. You try to unfocus your eyes. I do this all the time just to okay, I think I'm seeing it. But for me,
definitely it's this way, but then all of a sudden you blink and you look back again and it's like, oh,
right. Suddenly it's up here, and then before it's down here.
It depends on where I'm just noticing now, it depends on where your eyes are focusing too, right? Because if you're looking at the bottom of the cube, it sort of jumps up and it's like hollow on the inside. It's
Right.
really weird,
But
especially with this thing. But yeah, it's
it's kind of like an eye illusion, if you want to call it that. But you can see it from both ways, but it's just how you initially see it. So for me, I initially see it as the first front facing cube or square of the cube, like the side of the cube that I see first is more to like the down left. That's how I see it.
so I saw it too.
Yeah.
The
This must
longer
sound
I look at
very
it,
what?
the longer I look at it and the more I blink, it's like almost like a disco effect.
I know you can see it both ways, but this must sound really strange for people who are just listening to the audio. The downward to the left of the front back. Okay, sure. Anyway, just to give you an idea of where I'm going with this, that cube is a great example. It's called the Necker cube. So a lot of people have seen this one before. It's called Rubens' vase or faces. So
Yeah,
which do you see first?
it's the two faces facing each other. It looks like they're almost going to kiss, kind of, and then the white is in the in between, which would be the vase. I see the faces first, but I just as easily see the vase.
Yep. And you can see, that's the thing, people can see both, or sometimes people have a hard time seeing the other, but I see both as well, but I see the faces too. So you and I are kind of similar so far, but yeah, so the picture we're looking at, it's this black and white, and it's either you're seeing two faces facing each other, or if you focus more on the white part of the image, it's a vase instead. So
Well,
that one.
I'm glad we're seeing the same thing. I figured that this was trailing off too because we're old and
You don't see things from my point of view, right?
never understand. Yeah.
So, the duck rabbit. This one is also a very familiar and common one that has circulated quite a bit. The one that I was most familiar with, actually. So, which do you see first, the duck or the rabbit?
I saw the duck first, but now I see the rabbit and the duck.
I see the rabbit first, always, and I find to see the duck is harder for me.
Really?
Yeah.
This can't be his ears of the rabbit because it's obviously the duck bill.
Well, it's obviously the ears of the bunny, but yeah, so the image we're looking at, it's basically just a duck rabbit is the way to say it, but it's just all dependent on if you see the rabbit's ears or if you see the bill of the duck. So it's just, again, depending on what you see first. The next one we have here is less about what you see first, but more to just further demonstrate. So there's a number 6, I almost said a letter, a number 6, or depending on how you look at it, a number 9 laying on the floor, and there's a person on either side, and they're both arguing essentially with each other that this person sees the number 6 and the other person sees the number 9. But it's very clearly putting the point across that they're both right.
Right.
But
I've seen this.
yeah,
Sorry to interrupt you.
no, it's okay. Just it's based on the perspective that they have. And in this situation, the way that they're standing and
Yeah.
the point of view they have and where they're standing is what they're seeing. But if they would, for a half a second, consider that, well, maybe they're seeing it differently because of whatever, and being less defensive about the fact that they're right, that we'd be able to see that they're both right in this circumstance.
And I really love this one because it really is the epitome of what the message is here, that depending on what side you stand on, that you're going to see something one way or the other. And if he would just go, if one of the guys or both of the guys in this picture would just change places with the other one, they would see it from their perspective. So that's the parallel to life, right? You know, often we can see a situation only from our side, not from the other person's side. But if we took a few minutes to see, you know, what they might be experiencing, we might have a different take on what is actually going on.
Right. And a lot of it has to do with pride. You just have to drop your pride for half a second to consider that it's not that anybody has to be right or wrong. It's just that there's different points of view here.
Right.
So another one here, it's similar to the last one I was showing. So again, there's a person on either side. There's one person claiming that there are 4 cubes, or not cubes, rectangles on the floor. And the other person is claiming that there's 3.
Mhm.
This one's less obvious, but it's essentially the same message. They're
Yeah,
both right.
on one side, there's 4 ends of the sticks, or the
Right.
rectangles, or the logs, or the large French fries, whatever they are. And then on the other side, you can only see 3 ends, but it's the way it's drawn in this case. It's not actually that one person is right and one is wrong, or because what is that thing that they're looking at?
Right. It's a less obvious one, but it's the same message of they're both right. They
Yeah.
just are standing in different positions and are seeing a different perspective of this thing on the floor, and they're both right.
Right. Again, it's by perspective.
Yeah. And another one here. So again, perspective. There's a man on an island and he sees a boat in the distance and he goes, "Boat!" Like he's excited, like, "Oh, thank goodness someone's come to save me." And then from the other point of view, there's a man in a boat, the guy that he's looking at, and he's going, "Land." Like, "Thank goodness I've found land because I've been stuck on this boat."
Yeah, I find that's really strong. I mean, I could see it and instantly it registered, but until you started talking about it, it's so true. This guy's been on this one little chunk of land in the ocean and feeling lost, and he's just glad somebody's come to get him. And the other guy's like, "Man, am I ever glad to get out of this boat?
Yeah. And
Just
it's
there on a piece of land, yay!"
Yeah, and it's not just perspective here. It's also, I feel like there's a message of just being thankful for what we have, because we're all often looking for what we don't have. And these guys both are in this specific scenario. But yeah, I thought this one was comical because it's so true. Depending on which crappy situation you're in, you're going to look forward to the next
Right.
less crappier version of what you currently have. And one last one I just had here. So this one is more of a motivational one. So you're looking from the top point of view, and you're just seeing a circle, and it says you're not going in circles. And then they bring it down to the side view of said circle, and it's actually like it's almost like a downward spiral staircase. Words today are hard for me. And it says, so you're not going in circles, you just need to see it differently. So I shouldn't have said downward. I guess it should be seen as you're going upward. It's this spiral, but you're going up in an upward direction. You're not spiraling out of control, kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it could be up, it could be down, but it's just, yeah, you're still making progress in one as opposed to the other. It kind of looks like you're just going around and around, yeah,
Yeah. So
from the perspective of the viewer.
yeah, again. So just as a quote, I wanted to just kind of tie everything in together today. It was just a quick episode, something that I thought was kind of neat and something cool to address because it is very true. And I've definitely experienced lots of times in my life where I've stood firm in what I believe, but if I just take a second, which my mother's taught me well in that regard, in seeing someone else's point of view and just considering how they're seeing things, be how they've lived their life up to this point to be able to see it in such a way, see why they are seeing it in that form, like the emotions involved, maybe there's other factors at play. If you just for a second consider that other people have different feelings and perspectives for a reason, and that we often go in this defense mode, like I'm right, you're wrong, and there's no in between. But if we could just have conversations with people about how this is how I see it and this is how I'm feeling, and how are you seeing and feeling it, and just leaving it at that, that would be totally fine. So this quote here just says, remember, perspective can cause two people to look at the same thing and see two totally different things.
Yeah,
Just like,
you and I have had a lot of conversations lately about perspective from where we are in life.
Yeah.
Right. So you see it one way, and I can recall being in your position at your age and seeing things completely different from how I see them now.
Mhm.
And again, I could speak to my mother and she would see it different than I see it and differently than you see it, because she has had the advantage of having, all of those years of life experience. And yeah, they all play in for sure.
And there's just so many layers to it. So you're talking about age difference and perspective. There's also gender and sex perspective. There's also different perspectives with race and privilege, where you live. There's so many different factors at play and how that can impact your perspective on life or a certain circumstance. So I felt it didn't need to be a super serious topic today, but something that I felt needed to be brought up, just because I kept seeing those pictures on, you're scrolling through your phone on Facebook or whatever. And a light bulb went off on how this just is a whole message on life, not just, do you see a duck or a bird?
Yeah. And I coming into this, your perspective was, it'll be fine. It's easy. I know what I have. So
I'm just going to show you some pictures. It'll be okay.
my perspective was, what is she going to pull out and how am I going to react? And then are we going to have to stop taping? And then, so again, two completely different perspectives.
Yeah, and just experiences and how we go about life can totally change how we see things or are expecting things to go, like in this episode today. But thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. And like we said, for those who weren't watching, we did say the titles of these different images, so you can look them up for yourself, or you can always find our episode in viewable form on YouTube, where we shared those pictures today. So we hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next Monday.
Bye.
If you or someone you know has a unique story to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theimperfectpodcast@outlook.com.
For more information and how to connect with us on social media, you can visit us at our website, theimperfectpodcast.ca.
And from whichever platform you are listening to this episode, be sure to like, share, and leave us a review. We would really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
We look forward to hearing your feedback and seeing you all find that extra joy and embrace your own imperfect.
See you next week.